Hello everybody, it's Julia Laird. Welcome to Senior Susie Stamps. Today is Sunday and it's Sunday with Susie. Today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about using up some of our designer series paper that we have floating around in our studios. I know I have way too much paper and I'll probably never ever get it used. And so I've been thinking about that this week. Now, this is a pack that is 6x6. It's called Secret Garden. It came from paperwishes.com and I believe it is still available. And I used a piece of this to make a nice card. And here it is. So it was a simple card to make, and there's nothing wrong with making simple cards. They're wonderful to use and easy to make. This one uses a lot of the paper, but even with the little inside treatment that I did, I still have this piece of that one 6x6 paper left to put back in as a scrap. And so with that thought process in mind, I think we need to maybe think a little bit larger than this and go for a big card. You want to? Come on with me. I have a couple of examples of what I mean by big cards. Today, we're going to be using this glue, and it is Books by Hand PVA glue, and I've been using it for the last 2 weeks in this little tiny bottle, and I really like these little bottles. I will put a link to them in the description below, as well as this glue. It's a nice alternative to some of the more expensive glues, and it does an absolutely wonderful job in card making. So now I want to show you these two examples of cards that I made. And while we're on the subject of making cards, let's talk about making envelopes, because this is a 6x6 envelope. It takes a 9 1/4 inch square envelope base, and I used an envelope punch board to make these with, because I happen to like this little quarter fold format. But it goes with this card. And these are modified gatefold cards. And you can see, I'm going to pull it open here. There's a nice little embellishment on the front. And see what a beautiful big card that is. It takes one full sheet of cardstock and a lot of designer paper. Now, I have used designer paper for the matte layer as well as the pattern layer on this card. And these little embellishments came recently from the Dollar Tree, so you might check your Dollar Tree if you've got one in your area. And otherwise, I'm sure you've got plenty of stuff in your stash. Now, this is some paper that I've had for a long time, and I don't find a label on it, so I can't tell you what it is, but it's just whimsical, and it's a nice, fun card for a birthday card. So this is just a happy hello. And I'm going to show you how to make this little closure today. But let's close this one back up and get it out of the way. And look at the second card I got to show you. This is the same card format. I made an envelope and I made a little closure for it out of some designer paper. This is the card. And I had enough scrap on that card left to make a little scrap card in an A2 size. So I made that to send as a little gift with this card. And the envelope's plenty big to hold both of them. And then this is a really pretty birthday card. And of course it stands up nicely. It takes up a lot of real estate on your desk when you're looking at it. If you send it to somebody in an office, it's impressive. And this little closure works very well for this style card. And you can see this closure and the one on that other card are totally different, but the functionality is the same. So let's get started on today's card. It's the same cut we talked about last week, where you cut an 8 1/2 by 11 sheet of paper at 5 1/2, and then you turn the piece that's left and cut it at 5 1/2. So that's what we're going to start with today. And I want to use a colored cardstock because I'm not going to cut a matte layer today. This is the measurements. They will be over on the Facebook page, and they'll be there with the date of January 27th on it. But you can see we've got an 8.5 by 11 cut down to 5.5 by 11 and 2 pieces at 3 by 5.5. This is a pack of paper, 6-inch square, again from paperwishes.com, called A Nesting Place, and it's some really pretty bird themed paper. I'm making it for a friend of mine who has just moved, and you'll notice that I cut a piece of coordinating cardstock, not the same but coordinating, and that same format. And let me know if you want me to do a tutorial on how to make a 6x6 square envelope, because they're easy to make. Now on the cardstock itself, I've scored it at 2 3/4 and then turned it and scored it at 2 3/4. And on these 3-inch pieces, they're both scored at 2 3/4. So that's all you need to remember on your score lines is the 2 3/4 inch score. So I'm going to use some glue now. I'm going to put this little addition on the back. And you need to be a little careful when you're doing this that you don't get too much goppy glue going. It doesn't work well if it seeps out all over the place. So all I did was to bend that little score line up. I've already burnished these today because you saw me do that last week, and I didn't think I needed to repeat it again today. And so there's the first one on, and I'm going to do the second one. These are really, really easy cards to make. They use a complete piece of cardstock for the card base in an 8.5 by 11 size. And then they move a lot of designer paper out of your studio for you, which is kind of nice. Okay, so then this one folds in, and once your glue dries up well, this one folds back, and so it's a double gatefold card. And so then we have the gatefold card that opens up like that, and it's simple to make, and it's easy to make. So I have some papers that are cut here, and this is the way they're going to go on. We have that one. I think I'm going to put this one on there, and this one over here. Once you get all your bits and bobs and pieces, these are easy to put together. And when you're using a pack of coordinating cardstock, then it just makes it a simple 1, 2, 3 card to make. So I'm going to glue this on. This card so far has used 3 sheets of 6x6 paper. And because I used this nice pool party paper, I'm not going to do the matte layer, so these pieces are cut to the matte layer size, so they have a 1/4 inch difference between the card base, just so you know. Let's see, I think I might, let's look at it that way and see. No, I think I kind of like it this way. Okay, here we go. This is lovely paper. And if you're familiar with paperwishes.com, this paper that they have now is just a touch heavier weight than what they used to have. It's really a nicer paper quality, I think. When I use some of my older packs of paper, I have a noticeable tactile difference in these papers, and so I just want you to be aware of that, because sometimes people like to have a little heavier paper. It's not so heavy that you could make a card base out of it, I don't think. We might want to try that someday, but I have gotten to the point where I try to just buy 6x6 paper packs, and of course they're not big enough to make a card base out of. Isn't this pretty paper though? I love the artwork in it. And I thought with all the little birdhouses on it, it would make a nice little move-in card. You'll notice I'm not using a lot of this glue. I think sometimes we tend to over-glue things, partly because some of the tips on our glue bottles are too big, and partly because, like I just did recently, we don't allow our stuff to dry long enough. We just expect it to be instantaneous, but we still want it to be able to move around. And you got to make your choice on which one you want. There we go. And now the card panels are all ready, and when it folds up, this is what you see from the outside. So I have some artwork that came in that paper pack, and I thought we would make a little embellishment to go on the front of this one. And I'm thinking something around the lines of a belly band would be nice for this card. And of course I didn't have enough paper, so I'm going to make a little splice. And I have a crimping stapler. It's supposed to be in today, so we'll see if it comes or not. Because I'm going to crimp right here, but I'm going to show you how it will look when it's finished. And I'm going to put this side out so that it coordinates with the front. And then there'll be a little crimp here and a crimp there. This one I am going to put up on some foam tape. So I can go ahead and get that done now. I thought that crimper was going to be here yesterday in plenty of time for my video, but it didn't come. Okay, so I want this to go off to the side, I think. Or maybe right in the center would be good. Yeah, let's just put it right in the center. And I'm going to put a handwritten note on the inside of this. But in order to tie that envelope in with this card, I'm going to cut a little piece right here and then put a piece of white on top of it. So let me get my trimmer. That needs to be about 4 inches by 2.5 inches. 2 inches. Let's see how wide this piece is. 2 1/4. That's what we're going with. 2 1/4 by 4. The nice thing about making cards like this with this designer paper is you let the designer paper do all the work for you. And it works really well that way. Now let me get in my white scraps over here and see if I've got a little white scrap that might happen to be big enough to cut down. I don't have many big pieces in here right now. It's pretty slim pickings, but this little guy right here will be big enough to cut down. And I believe I'm going to put a little stub punch on these corners so they're not just plain corners. It doesn't take much to make something look a little more finished, and this is a quick and easy way to do that. This is a We Are Memory Keepers Crocodile Corner Chomper. That was a mouthful. Okay, well, got one more. There we are. So I'm going to glue that down. Perhaps I should stamp this first. So one of the categories of stamps that I have in the studio is houses and moving. And these are some cards I found. Aren't they cute? That I had made already. But I thought there's no place like home, but I believe that's a little too big for this particular one. And I think maybe this one right here that says just moved would be nice to kind of go up in the little corner on that. And then I'll make a little handwritten note that goes with that. So let me get that ready. Now the artwork in this paper is mainly brown and green and blue. So I'm going to use my brown ink with that, this rich cocoa that I have over here by Memento. Let me do a little pre-stamp on that because I don't think I've ever used this particular stamp before. Yeah, I think that's going to be just fine. There we go. And that's kind of inobtrusive. It's not really in your face so much. And that's fine. That's exactly what I was looking for. Because I'll just make a little quick note there. Let's see here how that goes. Yep, I kind of like that. That'd be fine. I might put a little brown edge around that. Let me get a brown pen. This is a Spectrum Noir EB5. And that will give this just a little more dimension to stand up off that page. There. And I might go back and add just a little coloration to this little house here. Let me see right quick what I can come up with. I'll be right back. Okay, there we go. I just put a little quick color on, and these are the colors that I used. Some of them are Copics and some of them are, I have no idea what brand this is, and some of them are Spectrum Noir. We get this glued down now, and because there's not going to be any pressure on the inside of this card, I'm just going to go ahead and use my glue gun there. I'm going to try to leave kind of an even border around and not get too far over into the artwork here. And that surface area on that yellow paper is linen. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this on so that it get a good grip. There we go. Now there is some other artwork here that I thought we could maybe use just to kind of use up a little bit of it. And I had some little pieces left over from cutting these. So I thought maybe I could use it in a little flag, perhaps, with congratulations. That would work, wouldn't it? Maybe here. No, that's going to go on the front. So I'm thinking maybe here would be good. So let's go ahead and get those glued together. And that uses up those scraps. And this is all just part of the paperwork, the artwork from this paper pack. I think that needs to be just a little bit shorter. Not too much or I'll lose all my glue. Okay. And I want it flat so that that'll fold down well. Where did it go? Oh, here it is. Let me just put that one right up in there, in the middle of that panel at the top there. Now let's see. These are some of the cut-aparts, and I'll use them on my scan and cut, and it cut the page out very nicely for me for all of these. So let's see, I wonder if any of these would go maybe across here. For you will work, especially on that one, won't it? Okay, we'll glue that one down. And I'm wondering about putting it on just a little tiny piece of this linen, just to kind of pull that linen in a little bit more into the card. You can use different companies' papers as long as your colors coordinate or something coordinates. The texture, the color, the theme. It doesn't always have to be the same company, is my point. It's easier, I think, sometimes if it is the same company, but it does not have to be. There we go. So I think we'll kind of angle that a little bit and put it in. There we go. I have a little handwritten note there. I want to show you, these are the only two pieces then that are left out of those three 6x6 panels. So that's a nice reduction in paper if you're trying to use up some of your designer paper. There is a little bit left over from a 12 by 12 when you make those envelopes, but as you saw, they're very usable. So I'll set these aside. And now I want to show you how to make just the basic closure for those other two cards. And I think I'm going to do it in a square format. And I'm going to cut some 2 by 2 squares. You need 4 identical shapes. You can use whatever shape you want. I've used punches, I've used square cuts, I've used die cuts. It doesn't make any difference. You just need 4 that can be mirror imaged. So you don't want something that's different from one side to the other. But in order to make that closure, you take 2 pieces, and on this one we're going to fold them in half right down the diagonal. I am going to get my scoreboard for that because I want to show you a little trick on my scoreboard. You've seen these lines before, and I've mentioned this because it makes it much easier when you're trying to do a diagonal on something like this. If you have a line on your scoreboard, you see I can start there, I can end here, and I know that my points are in the right spot then. So I'm going to score 2 of them, 2 out of the 4, exactly the same way, right down the middle of that diagonal. And then we're going to fold these and burnish them. And there we go. Now I'm sure you see where this is going, but we're going to glue them then. This is going to be the back, this is going to be the front, and they're going to go like this, here and here. And I want to have a good glue coverage, and then before I use it, I want to leave it and let the glue dry well. And so I like to pick these up in my hands and make sure your edges are overlapping well, and that you don't have anybody hanging out in the wind, because you're going to have 4 layers basically now of this, and so you want it to flow down just right. There we go, there's one. And so if you need to trim a little bit, once you get this second folded piece on, that's the time to trim before you put it on this other piece. So I'm going to snuggle this right up next to that other piece there, and then I'm going to turn it over and evaluate whether or not anything needs to be trimmed off. Looks like it might need just a touch right there. That's not much, is it? But by the time you end up adding a 4th layer on there, it does bulk it up too much. So then this piece then goes right down on top, just like the top is here. And I'm going to put some glue all over both of these little flaps and put that on there. And then I kind of like to find a weight of some sort. Doesn't matter what, it just needs to weight it down flat and leave it alone for a few minutes. On this card, if I had wanted to use one of that style closer on it, I would have needed to trim this back just 1/16 of an inch off of the original piece. You can see how this doesn't quite come together. It's because before I put my flap on here, I trimmed this part of the 11-inch piece. Let me show you what I mean with this card that I'm going to put the belly band on, and this little closure that we just made, because I think you'll get the idea. You see, it won't go all the way up in there. There's just too much bulk on these things, and you can see now the card just won't close without having a little buckle in it. And you don't want that because you'll ruin your card in the mail. It'll be all warped up, and then when you have it stand up, it doesn't stand up quite nice. So remember, if you're going to use this style closure on these, which works very, very well, then do that little trim off, and it'll work just fine. But if you're going to do a belly band, you don't need to do that. And that way it meets right there in the middle and works very well that way. So there we go. Well, I went down and checked the mail, and my little crimper stapler had come in. So let's open it up. I got this from Amazon. And I'll put a link to it if they have any more. When I looked on it, looked for it, they only had 1 or 2 of them. So let's see about finishing up this card. Now, before I went down for lunch, I went ahead and finished the envelope, put it together. So it's all ready now. But on this little belly band, what I'm hoping will happen is I can crimp these edges together and still slide it up and down. So let's just try that and see. And I think I'm going to take it off. I've never used one of these before. Maybe I should try it on. Maybe I should try it on a piece of scrap paper. Maybe that'd be a good thing. There appears to be a little stopper there. So let's put this in there. Oh, very nice. Looks like a little zigzag. Okay. Well, let's try this and see. Otherwise, we'll be back at the drawing board, and that's okay too. All right. All right, here goes. It worked. Yay! They call these stapleless staplers, in case you want to search for one someplace. And some of them have a little puncture into the paper. But I like this one because it just crimps and puts the paper together that way. Okay, so now, then, this little belly band should slip right on over. Oh, it came apart. Well, maybe we'll just have to put a little glue on that then. And then cinch it with the stapler. We'll try it that way. Sometimes you just gotta experiment just a little bit. All right, let's try it again. There, now maybe that'll hold. Hopefully this one won't come apart. And it did. That is not the best plan for a belly band, but I am going to make it work by putting a little glue, and it'll just be a faux staple then. And that's fine with me for what I want for this card. Try to do a little one more here. No, it's too thick, it won't go in. Well, at any rate, so that's my little faux staple crimped belly band that I had to go back and glue. But you won't tell, will you? I promise I won't tell. So there we are. Let's look at the cards. This one goes in that envelope. This is that extra little piece. Oh, and you know, you can stamp and put decorator paper and whatever else you want to on the top of these little clasps for gatefold cards, and it works really, really well. And here's the rest of the cards from today's video. There's that one, And this paper was not part of that paper pack either. It was just kind of color coordinated, so it went well. And the spare card that goes with it. This is the card that I made just for a single sheet example, and then this is the other card. So I hope y'all have a great day and a nice weekend. We'll talk to you again soon. Bye bye, y'all.